The moment you try to be liked, you give up your power. You stop leading and start dancing to someone else's beat. It's an uncomfortable truth. Machiavelli saw empires rot from the inside out. He watched kings, popes, generals, and princes turn into emotional beggars just to be loved. They craved validation, applause, recognition. But every time they put affection before strategy, they unknowingly surrendered the one thing that kept them standing: power. Because affection, no matter how noble it seems, comes at a cost. It's never free. It carries a silent contract, an invisible web made of other people's expectations. And if you're not careful, that web turns into chains. It pushes you into places you never chose. It dulls your instincts. It tricks you into making decisions meant to please others, not protect your autonomy. That's why the truly powerful don't waste time trying to be liked. They don't chase affection. They chase results. They chase control. They chase goals so clear and so unapologetic they don't need approval to be valid. Machiavelli laid it out coldly in The Prince. It is much safer to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. That line has been misunderstood for centuries. People think it promotes cruelty or evil. But Machiavelli meant something deeper. Love is fragile. It's conditional. It fades. Fear, on the other hand, builds independence. Because love comes with unwritten rules. It softens you. It forces you to yield. The people who love you today will give you demands tomorrow. They'll ask you to pick stability over change, peace over truth, charm over authenticity. And if one day you stop meeting their expectations, they won't just withdraw their affection. They'll turn it into blame, disappointment, even rage. Look at the fate of every leader who tried to please everyone. Praise turns into expectation. Expectation into pressure. Pressure into punishment. But fear doesn't ask anything of you. Fear doesn't need to be heard or validated. It simply watches, alert and respectful. It doesn't try to change you because it knows it can't. And that's the core of true power: acting without permission, moving without approval. Ever wonder why the powerful don't care about being liked? Because to be liked, you have to kneel. Every smile you earn, every nice word you provoke, it's a subtle form of surrender. They're votes they grant you, but they can take them back at any time. That makes you fragile, dependent, exposed. Machiavelli saw it in the fall of Florence's nobility. He saw rulers trading logic for flattery. He watched republics collapse under the weight of their addiction to popularity. And he pulled one brutal lesson from it. The more people love you, the more they believe they own you. But the more they fear you, the more they hesitate to cross you. Think of the ones who rewrote history, not just Machiavelli's contemporaries, but modern icons. The rule breakers. The disruptors. The ones who never begged for approval. Steve Jobs wasn't loved for his personality. Neither were Napoleon, Cleopatra, Putin, Genghis Khan. Not even Christ by the end of his life. And yet, they moved mountains. Because they never asked permission. They never negotiated their vision. They didn't shape their actions to be liked. They chose the strength of their will over the temporary affection of the crowd. Now picture this. You walk into a meeting, a dinner, a party. The room's full of eyes waiting to see who you'll be. You've got two choices. Say what they want to hear. Or say what actually needs to be said. The weak go for laughs, compliments, and pats on the back. The strong? They steer the narrative. Even if it means tension. Even if it makes people squirm. Not out of cruelty, but because they're aligned with a truth that's not up for negotiation. In that moment, Machiavelli would whisper something brutal in your ear. If you must strike, strike in a way that they cannot strike back. He's not talking about violence. He's talking about psychological precision. Act with such clarity, such firmness, that there's no room left for correction. No space for debate. Because when you move with conviction, without flinching, without softening to gain approval, you've already won something that likability will never give you. Complete ownership of your image. So let me ask you this. What do you lose when you try to be liked? You dilute your words. You delay your decisions. You shrink your goals just to stay unnoticed. You surround yourself with people who don't even respect your core. You dim your fire so you don't throw off the mood. But worst of all, you betray your purest instincts just to keep the peace. Machiavelli would call that a slow death by 1,000 fake smiles. He saw it over and over, kings who tried to please both the people and the elite, only to lose the respect of both. And here comes the real Machiavellian twist. Power doesn't fear rejection. It engineers it. Smart leaders choose their enemies like a surgeon picks a scalpel. They use resistance to showcase strength. Because in the game of power, if everyone approves of you, you're probably not doing anything that matters. You're just playing a role. So, how do you start living with that kind of clarity? Machiavelli would whisper it calmly. Stop apologizing for seeing things clearly. Small minds are always offended by resolve. Stop wasting time explaining your choices to people too scared to look past their own fears. Stop mortgaging your future just to avoid the temporary discomfort of today. Force the world to pick a side. Let them admire you or fear you, but above all, let them respect you, because you don't bend. Because in the end, power isn't measured by how many smiles surround you. It's measured by the silence you command. The kind of silence that comes from knowing no one can take what you've earned, because you never needed anyone's approval to claim it. That was Machiavelli's true wisdom. And it still holds, even if people won't admit it, in the spaces where real power moves. It's not about being cruel. It's not about being cold for no reason. It's about understanding a truth most are too afraid to face. The desire to be loved is often the most dangerous weakness, dressed up as a virtue. Culture praises it. School teaches it. Family demands it. But deep down, the urge to fit in is the perfect tool for control. It's not a flaw, it's a tactic. And Machiavelli saw it crystal clear. That's why he didn't write for the righteous. He wrote for those who wanted to survive and win in a world ruled by appearances and manipulation. Morality, when it isn't chosen freely, when it's forced on you, becomes a weapon. It paralyzes those who hesitate, while the decisive charge forward. So ask yourself, what are you really looking for when you try to be liked? You're not seeking connection. You're looking for emotional shelter. You're trading strength for safety, conviction for validation. Instead of standing firm, this is the path. Take it or leave it. You shrink with a silent plea. Is this okay? Do you accept me? And the moment you make that trade, your authority dissolves. The thread of power you were weaving snaps. That's why the truly influential, not the wannabes, not the smiley politicians, not the ones selling curated authenticity. They don't chase validation. They chase control. They know that any warmth they offer must be measured, intentional, part of the game. Never born from need, only from strategy. Let's go deeper. When you try to be liked, you become predictable. People sense your fear of rejection, and they learn exactly which emotional buttons to push to shape your behavior. You stop being solid. You become moldable. And what's moldable is replaceable. If your main trait is being nice, approachable, agreeable, what makes you stand out? What makes you necessary? Nothing. You're just another face in the crowd. Machiavelli would have never tried to be liked. He'd have aimed to be unforgettable, respected from afar, or feared, not because he hated empathy, but because he understood a harsh rule. The closer people feel to you, the faster they lose respect. Distance, when used well, elevates. Familiarity, in excess, diminishes. Machiavelli would have smiled, sure, but only if that smile served his goal. He'd yield, but only if it gave him the upper hand. He wouldn't act out of anxiety or insecurity. Every gesture, every word, every pause, calculated. Never driven by emotional need, only by cold design. Here's where most people fail. They think being likable keeps them safe. That being nice equals security. They're wrong. Mass approval is dangerous. It creates emotional debt. People start to expect things from you. They believe they can mold you. They think they can demand consistency, compliance, submission. And with time, those expectations become chains. They'll ask you to tone it down, to hide your ambition, to not stand out, to keep your truth to yourself. They shrink you until you fit in their box. Machiavelli didn't preach humility. He taught dominance. He understood the mechanics of power. He knew real submission starts the moment someone, a person, a crowd, a culture, decides how you should act. Even subtly. Even with a smile. In that moment, you're no longer free. You're not leading, you're being led. That's why those with real power don't chase affection. They pursue advantage. They know, if you have to beg for loyalty, if you have to earn love with compliance, then that loyalty is fake. Just theater. And like all theater, it vanishes the moment you stop saying what people want to hear. So what did Machiavelli really teach us? He taught us how to embody respect without ever having to ask for it. Not through submission, but through razor-sharp intent, unshakable firmness, and the courage to say what others are too afraid to admit. He taught us to resist the hunger for approval, and to project authority that intimidates without violence, that commands without shouting, that exists without needing to fit in. Let me take you even further. The people who truly radiate magnetism, the ones you can't ignore when they walk into a room, they're not trying to win you over. They don't adjust to your energy. They are the energy. They don't ask for space, they take it. And that kind of presence, that effortless dominance, comes from one place only: emotional independence. They're not fishing for applause. They're asserting their vision, their judgment, their reality. Machiavelli would say it straight. The man who stands firm in his judgment, who doesn't crave validation, is the one others will follow when everything else falls apart. Because yes, people will resist you at first. They'll call you arrogant, cold, distant. But that's not the truth. That's just their fragility reacting to your strength. Deep down, everyone's looking for someone who won't flinch, who won't bend, who doesn't shift course just to avoid being judged. And no one truly trusts the person who needs everyone's approval. Because someone desperate to be liked will eventually betray themselves, and they'll betray you too, if that's what it takes to feel seen. But if you can live without their approval, if you can endure their rejection, you become the one thing they can't control. And that, even if they don't admit it, earns more respect than anything else. So let's bring it down to earth. Who actually moves forward in the real world? The one who always says yes? Who smiles even when being disrespected? Who patiently waits to be rewarded for their good attitude? Or the one who sets boundaries, makes hard calls, and walks away when disrespected? The second one may not be the most likable, but they're the one who leaves a mark. They're the one who makes the room go quiet when they walk in. Because their power doesn't come from being liked, it comes from being impossible to ignore. In today's world, Machiavelli would put it bluntly. If the only thing that makes you valuable is your likability, someone more likable will replace you. But if your value lies in your strength, your clarity, and your resolve, then even those who don't understand you won't risk losing you. Because charm is replaceable. Respect isn't. Want to become irreplaceable? Stop trying to please. Start being necessary. And that only happens when you let go of the need to be liked. That's when you finally discover who you really are, and more importantly, who's willing to follow you for what you stand for, not for the mask you wear. That's the transformation Machiavelli embedded in every line of The Prince. He didn't teach you how to be good. He taught you how to be solid, aware, respected, feared if needed, but never manipulated. Because affection that has to be begged for isn't real affection. And respect built on integrity? That never fades. Here's the trap, one that keeps millions stuck in quiet frustration, wondering why, after years of being nice, polite, and obedient, they're still overlooked or walked all over. The lie that being liked earns respect. Machiavelli crushed that lie without mercy. He watched over and over as the friendly leader, the kind-hearted man, the gentle ruler, were betrayed, abandoned, and brought down by the very people who once loved them. Because likability doesn't protect you, it burdens you with expectations. It turns you into an emotional resource, something people feel entitled to take from. And once people think they can manage you, you lose your power. You're no longer a person. You're a social puppet. Machiavelli's entire philosophy spins around a truth most people are afraid to face. If you want real power, you have to earn respect first. And if earning that respect means making people uncomfortable, so be it. History doesn't remember the ones who bent over backwards to please. It remembers the ones who held their ground when everyone else was begging for compromise. Because real leadership isn't about harmony. It's about hierarchy. It's the courage to move forward even when it isolates you. It's realizing that every smile you sacrifice, every clap you stop chasing, is one less chain holding you back. That's how you gain power. That's how you become unbreakable. Here's an uncomfortable truth Machiavelli grasped centuries ago. The ones obsessed with being liked usually lose themselves in the process. They water down their words, compromise their values, and trade in their goals, all to win approval. And while they think they're being smart, diplomatic, or prudent, those who hold real power just see them as weak. Because if you're willing to dull your edge just to be accepted, you won't survive when the pressure comes. The leaders Machiavelli studied didn't lead with affection. They led with utility. Their thought process was cold and clear. Does this person make me stronger? Do they bring power I don't already have? Are they a threat or a shield to my position? If the answer was no, they cut them off. No drama. No tears. No apologies. Because in the world of power, emotion is a luxury only the weak can afford. Not a prince or a seal. Doesn't matter. This logic still applies. Everyone rules over something. A social circle, a workplace, a family dynamic. And in any arena, those who lead don't adapt to opinion. They shape it. Now picture this. You walk into a room and everyone likes you. Sounds like a win, right? Machiavelli would ask you this. What did you have to give up to be liked by all of them? Did you hold your tongue? Did you flatter someone who didn't deserve it? Did you laugh when you should have gone silent? Every one of those compromises makes you more acceptable, but less powerful. More pleasant, but less respected. Machiavelli didn't write for the average person. He wrote for those willing to reshape their world with intention and strength. And he understood something vital. Fear isn't cruelty. It's firmness. It's the ability to stand tall without caving to group pressure. It's not letting opinions steer your course. When you project that kind of resolve, people respect you, even before they understand you. But the one chasing approval? They're always reacting, always adjusting, always censoring themselves. The powerful, on the other hand, they lead without asking for permission. If you aim to be extraordinary, your choices can't depend on what others expect. In fact, Machiavelli would argue, being controversial isn't a flaw, it's a tool. Let them talk. Let them misunderstand you. Let them say you're harsh or ambitious. That means you've made an impression. Because when people can't control you, they label you. And once they label you, you become impossible to ignore. You want loyalty? Then project it with clarity. Want to leave a mark? Be blunt. Want to be followed? Let go of being liked. Be unavoidable. Because real power doesn't belong to the one who gets the loudest applause. It belongs to the one who doesn't need it. The desire to be accepted is a sweet prison. It's not made of bars, it's made of smiles and compliments. And it's so comfortable, most people don't realize they're trapped until it's too late. Being liked feels good. Applause, validation, that warm social glow. But Machiavelli would be crystal clear. What you're building isn't power, it's dependency. And when the wind shifts, when your charm runs dry, they'll toss you aside without a second thought. You think you're in control, but in truth, you're just easy to manage. And when you stop being easy, they'll turn on you. That's Machiavelli's brutal lesson. Wanting to be liked means living by someone else's rules. And that makes you easy to break. History is full of respectable people who never crossed a line, never took a risk, never said what no one wanted to hear. They died polite, harmless, and irrelevant. Machiavelli chose a different path. He shaped himself into a weapon, sharpened his character until it became impossible to ignore. He didn't aim to please, he aimed to dominate. Because when your presence is bold, defined, unshakable, others bend to you. They may not love you, but they'll never underestimate you. And they'll never erase you from history. That weighs far more than fleeting affection. Love fades, but respect, when it's born from fear, sticks. Most people misunderstand his most quoted line. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. They think it's an excuse to be cruel. But what he meant was simple. Love is unpredictable. Respect built on strength is solid. Affection is alone. Fear sets boundaries. Someone who loves you can choose to stop. But someone who fears losing your favor, crossing you, or disobeying you, they self-regulate. They adjust their behavior just because you're in the room. Your words become law. Your attention, a reward. That's the silent empire of Machiavelli. Not built on charm, built on certainty. A deep conviction that you don't need approval to lead. Let me tell you something no one says with enough cold clarity. The more you try to be liked, the easier you are to replace. There will always be someone with a bigger smile, softer tone, more friendly energy. But if you walk into a room and refuse to play the approval game, if you speak from emotional detachment instead of likability, you leave a mark no one can copy. They might mimic your style, your words, even your look, but they'll never replicate that emotional coldness that makes you immune to needing validation. That's the mark of real power, the calm that comes from not needing to be liked. Machiavelli understood this better than most. He was never a slave to affection. He used charm as a weapon, never as shelter. If he was polite, it served a purpose. If he praised you, it had a hidden goal. If he appeared to yield, it was to take something more valuable. And if anyone dared to think they could win him over with empty flattery, he'd sever the connection with brutal elegance. No drama, no noise, just distance. Because someone with power never begs for love. They walk away. And in doing so, they reveal something raw. Watch how fast others get offended. How they squirm. How they call you cold. Not because you hurt them, but because you reminded them, silently, that they never had control over you. Now look at the world through that lens. Everything is built on the desire to be liked. Every gesture is a performance. Every word is filtered through the fear of being too much. Everyone's desperate to fit in, to be accepted, to get that hit of validation that ends up making them slaves. In that rush to be adored, they throw away their strength. They censor their thoughts, dilute their essence. They fake humility like it's a virtue, when really, it's currency Machiavelli would have rejected on sight. He'd ask you one thing, straight up. Does your humility give you power? If it doesn't make you stronger, if it doesn't solidify your leadership, if it doesn't earn you real authority, it's worthless. Just a mask. If your kindness doesn't earn respect, it's just a performance. And if your modesty invites people to walk over you, it's not a virtue, it's a slow disappearance. This isn't about becoming a villain. This isn't about being hated. But you do have to kill the need to be liked. That's the key. Don't need affection. Indifference is the armor no one can pierce. Because once you stop depending on approval, you finally speak truth. Act with power. Cut ties without guilt. Leave without explanation. You demand what you deserve without apology. And if you hold that posture long enough, something shifts. People stop testing your limits. They don't second-guess your words. They don't wait for your smile to feel safe. Because now they know. You're not chasing their approval. You're claiming authority. And then comes the most powerful moment. The flip in the dynamic. You stop chasing their favor. They start chasing yours. They sense your detachment. And instead of backing off, they're drawn in. They want to be seen by you. They crave your recognition. They hang on your words, because you don't need to say them. You become rare, emotionally untouchable. And that independence? It's magnetic. In that state, you don't react to praise like everyone else. You're not shaken by rejection. You don't fold under pressure. You're no longer just a person. You're a presence. A force. Someone who commands respect, not with noise, but with stillness. Your disapproval hits harder than applause from a crowd. Your silence creates more tension than a direct attack. And even when you do nothing, they feel you deciding. Here's the brutal paradox. You may not be the most liked, but you will be the most respected. Not everyone will get you, but a few will follow you with loyalty. Not all will love you, but some will quietly admire the raw force you carry. So if you want to build real power, in business, in leadership, in life, burn this into your brain. Don't explain your truth just to be understood. Don't soften your tone just to avoid offense. Don't hide your vision just to be accepted. Don't fake a smile if it betrays your core. Don't pretend to be humble when you know you've earned what you have. Don't apologize for your edge, your clarity, your standards. And never sacrifice your authenticity to soothe someone else's emotional fragility.